Ladies and gentlemen, this is going to be part 7 of Contact Report 31. I may end up down the road again. I may have to redo this one because I get to listen to them, and some of the stuff I didn't really mess up, but I skipped over the German stuff and it gets a little unorganized sometimes. But we'll get them up for now, and then maybe later on I can refine it. Okay, Contact Report 31, Part 7. Billy, Pata, it is the truth, but I do not want you to cause yourself pain with it. Billy, that is easier said than done. When I see that everywhere in our world there is need and misery and countless human beings simply die miserably, then I am simply overcome with anger and I could smash everything to bits. How many human beings there are among us who only lack a little love to make them content and happy. Every human being needs love, honest love, damn it. But why do we not give it to them? Why does everyone only live past the other, and why does no one help the other? And why are those punished by the authorities who feel real love for their fellow human beings and also give them this love? I have also been fined a very large sum because of this. Why, damn it all, does it have to be like this with us Earth humans? I just do not understand. Creation is so powerful in its glory, in its wisdom and truth, and in its knowledge, but why human beings cannot keep to it and have to run after the cursed cultic religions in order to plunge themselves and everyone else into even more misery. This is beyond my spiritual horizon. Maybe I am actually too stupid to be able to understand this, or then I am already on the way to going crazy. I am ... Semyazi, please do not do that. You are causing me pain with your words. You understand everything very well and also know all the reasons. But you allow yourself to become angry because you know and see the great suffering of Earth humans and know very well that it will take a very long time before calmness, knowledge, peace, wisdom, and truth will return to your home world. It grieves you because you know how much more suffering will befall Earth humans before they take the path of truth. As they've said, we've got a rough road ahead of us until people finally start sorting out what's going on. You know everything very well and also know many coming events, but this is no reason for you to put yourself in pain, by which you also cause me pain. Billy, excuse me, that was really not in my mind. Semyazi, you are a very dear friend to me, and I do not want you to grieve and suffer. Billy, thanks. Pata, that is my feeling too. Billy, thanks. You guys are very sweet. We were talking about something earlier. What was it? Semyazi, you were interested in other worlds and life forms equal to Earth and Earth humans. Billy, oh yes, that is correct. But there is something else haunting my brain. We were talking about the timeless channel earlier. Something is still not clear to me. In other words, something is not clear to me about this journey. You told me that I had become about half an hour younger than the human beings on Earth. This is because we were in eternity for 7 minutes. I know that my wristwatch always goes crazy when I get close to Semyazi's beam ships. But now it seems to have gone completely crazy because I already have the date of the 19th day on it. According to that, I should have been cruising around the universe with you for more than 2 days already. You, Semyazi, told me that we would need about 30 hours. Something is wrong with the time. Besides, I am not tired, hungry, or thirsty. So what is really being tinkered with? Pata, Semyazi did give you some of our fruits and also some vegetables to eat. Billy, of course. But that was a long time ago. Semyazi, the vegetables and fruits of this kind are very nutritious and thirst-quenching compared to your produce. They can satisfy your hunger and thirst for up to 90 hours. Billy, I accept this explanation, and it also seems to me to be as you say, but something is still wrong. Why am I not tired? Ptah, this is also very easy to explain. You breathe the same air here in the spaceship as we do, but this corresponds to the conditions on our home world and is much healthier and more invigorating than on the Earth. The oxygen content is several values higher than on Earth, and there are also some differences in the composition of the other elements. But everything is as breathable for you as it is for ourselves. The different composition of our air, however, guarantees us a longer wakefulness and a much shorter need for sleep than is the case on Earth. That is the reason why you are not tired. Billy, your explanation makes sense to me, but you are still hiding something. Something is just not right. I can feel it. Is my timer really acting so crazy that it is suddenly going forward by days? Semyazi, your watch is very accurate. Billy, huh? I mean that it means we have been cruising the universe for more than 2 days? Semyazi, sure. We have spent a bit more time than we had intended. Billy, golly, I'm going crazy. And you say it so easily. What do you think is going to happen at my house? My wife is going crazy. I told her I would be home no later than the evening of the 18th. Gosh, girl, my wife has already reported me missing to the police. That is going to set off a fuss. Semyazi, it will not be all that bad. Billy, you say that. What arias do you think my wife can sing? She can truly replace a whole orchestra. In other words, she's going to scream at him. Semyazi, are you afraid of your wife? Billy, not that, but if it is possible for me, I avoid such theatrics and musical outpourings. In other words, you don't want to get his butt chewed. Semyazi, well, that is good then, because we are going to be on the road for many more hours. Billy, I am enjoying you. I promptly get my wife to quit loving me after all. Semyazi, it is not going to be that bad, is it? Billy, do you have any idea? Ptah, you are taking your fun a bit far, my child. Billy, aha, so Semyazi is just teasing me? Then you must have hatched something. Is it possible my timer is not working correctly after all? Ptah, you have a very good watch. Semyazi, sure, that is indeed so. I was just teasing you a little bit. Billy, do you mean loosely along the lines of love likes to tease? Semyazi, if you think of it in terms of friendship, then yes. Billy, then I am reassured. But now, what have you been keeping from me so far? Semyazi, Father already said that your watch is correct, and we have really been on the road for such a long time too. But you do not have to worry about that, not even if we need a good day or more before we bring you back. You yourself have obviously not grasped the possibilities that are available to us in terms of time. It takes ... Billy, oh, I forgot about that. Surely you want to guess at time travel, perhaps the same form I remember from Ask It? Semyazi, sure. Since we are in free space and do not influence any events, etc., we can travel back in time for a few days without hesitation and continue to live there without anything changing. Although you will be away from your home for more than 3 days in total, you will only have been away for about 20 hours according to earthly normal time. They're going to jump him back into time, save him getting his butt chewed by his wife. Billy, that sounds a bit crazy. So I have been away from home for a little over 2 days now, and I will be away for a total of 3 or more days. So that means I started this journey with you on the 17th, and I am now on the road with you for more than 2 days, because today is the 19th. But now I am going to spend more days with you, and then I'm going to travel back in time with you to be back home on the 18th. Although in reality, I am still on a great journey on the 20th or so, and I'm going to curve through the universe with you. Is that right? Semyazi, sure. Billy, aha, it is true. I guess that is everything, is it not? Semyazi, sure. Billy, quite simple, actually. I am sure every human being understands that and does not even break their brain doing it. So basically, on the 18th, he's going to be back on Earth, but he's also going to be traveling around in space with Semyazi and Ptah. So the way I see it, there's going to be two Billies. Yeah. Okay. Semyazi, it is to be understood. Billy, sure. It is the simplest thing in the world that I go on a big trip with you on the 17th, find out on the 19th that I am already here for more than 2 days, and return home tomorrow on the 20th or even later, and arrive there on the 18th. Really, this is very simple, and everyone can understand it perfectly. It is only a simple madness of universal proportions. Even a child can understand it. It is just as simple as the elimination of trees. I guess Quetzal got a little too close, or Semyazi got too close to a tree, and it was poisoned by some kind of radiation or left radiation in it. So they had to eliminate the tree. There is a huge fir tree in a meadow that a farmer has been sawing off the lowest branches for 50 or 70 years, gathering up the fir cones and burning them. Then you simply come and eliminate the tree. And for 50 or 70 years, the said farmer has never constantly sawn off the lowest branches and also not gathered up any pine cones and, of course, not burnt them either. This is all really very simple, and any human being can understand that. In other words, he's kind of befuddled. Semyazi, now I do not understand you. Billy, that is very simple. Everything is very clear to me, and I understand everything very well. But make that clear to my dear fellow human beings for once. H. Jacob, for example, still cannot digest the fact that the weather furs have simply disappeared, and that no human being can remember them except me. It also does not make sense to him that you have also erased his memory, because he knows at least that one area very well where one of the trees used to stand. It simply does not make sense to him that he cannot remember the tree, although he must have seen it again and again over a long period of time. Therefore, he also comes back to this tree again and again and explains that no tree could have stood there. Semyazi, these things are peculiar to ignorant and doubting earth humans. Sorry, I had a glitch there. These things are peculiar to ignorant and doubting earth humans. So do not trouble yourself further with these things. If you wanted to adduce evidence, it would be useless, for where understanding of certain things is lacking, it cannot be helped by Gowalt. In former times, visible proofs were necessary for the human beings of the earth in order to impart certain forms of thought to them. But by these visible proofs, they began to believe in miracles, and at other times they went astray. The present time of the earth has progressed beyond visible evidence, and the path of clear and logical rationality and equally clear and logical understanding alone must be followed. Only these values count for the present time, and they are the better evidence than all those which are visible. Today, the power of consciousness, knowledge, and wisdom and love are of utmost importance to be able to walk the path of evolution. In Emmanuel's time, however, it was different, for at that time the knowledge of earth humans was in every respect still very much imprisoned in those things which can be recognized by the eye and heard by the ears. At that time, this ensured that the human being who saw and heard visible evidence became aware of his or her power of thought and thereby progressed evolutionarily. Today, however, Earth humans have emerged from this stage, have acquired greater rationality and intellect, and have become very conscious of their power of thought. So, evolution demands of them that they should also seize these powers and put them to useful use. But this can truly only be done by hard consciousness-based work. This means that Earth humans now live in the evolutionary stage, since they must and can work out knowledge, truth, wisdom, and love for themselves through consciousness work, without needing visible or audible proofs. But if a human being demands visible or audible proofs at this time, then it is obvious that in terms of consciousness, she has not yet fully climbed to the level of the new age, and in certain things is still a slave to the old time. The present proofs of the earthly Aquarian age are furnished by human rationality, intellect, and the infallible logic of truth. These, however, are what Earth humans, with their adaptable form of thinking, must recognize for themselves. Billy, that is plain and clear. Ptah, it is very well explained, but now ask what interests you earlier regarding other worlds and life forms. Billy, I am interested to know if there are worlds and life forms in the universe that are roughly equivalent to earthly norms. Ptah, parallels can be found everywhere. For example, there are also worlds that are very similar to Earth and on which there are also human life forms with almost the same development as Earth humans. One such world is found in the galaxy Aratom, Aratom, in the system Neb, Neb, and the world is called Kartag, Kartag. Billy, I find that gratifying, but I cannot do anything with those particulars. It is Spanish to me, so to speak. Ptah, Kartag is 8 billion light years from Earth, and the human beings living on this world are at war with each other. Their time is the time of nuclear use, and they are currently waging nuclear war. Billy, and this is not being prevented by you? Ptah, it is not in our concerns to interfere there, because the system is under the control of a highly evolved life form that is trying to prevent disaster there. The Cartesian life forms, however, are at an important turning point in their evolution and at the end of their nuclear age. They are still destroying each other with nuclear bombs, but this will not last much longer. Foresight says that in less than 10 days their war will be over and they will join the decrees of the controlling intelligences. Billy, so they are a little more evolved than Earth humans? Ptah, that is so. They take the final steps to pass through the barrier of irrationality. Billy, that is gratifying. Ptah, certainly, but they had to go the way of their evolution, and interference in this form outside is rarely advisable. Billy, so that means that through this non-intervention by far more highly developed intelligences, which would nevertheless have been given the means in their hands, countless life forms, in this case human beings, are killed, is it not? Ptah, that is so, certainly. Interventions may only be made when discernible catastrophes of galactic or intergalactic magnitude loom. So they're not going to interrupt unless we're going to make a black hole in the solar system. They're going to leave us alone, as long as we're not bothering anybody else. Billy, then that means that the inhabitants of a world, it can be completely destroyed and annihilated unless whole far-reaching systems or even parts of the galaxy are endangered by it. Ptah, you recognize the facts very well. Every life form must follow the path of its own evolution, even if it leads in some manner to self-destruction. Billy, that sounds a bit crude and perhaps even barbaric, but it makes sense to me because it is a law that is also anchored in nature. What Asertat negatively will be destroyed by itself if the law is not followed, because it cannot endanger the good life by doing so. Ptah, that is correct. You know these laws very well. Only by following these laws can life be ensured. It is a wicked and false humanism when Osgirtides' life is forcibly kept alive without expedient instruction in the form that it may become still Osirgatiter further. Elimination is the only correct observance of the laws of conservation. You know this as the death that fallible life forms bring on themselves through coercion. The human beings also know the death penalty when an offense against the laws is committed in Osertung, which is unfortunately wrong. Earth humans unfortunately do not understand and recognize the meaning of these laws. Therefore, they indulge in a false humanism and in a false execution of sentences. That this is so, you will experience again in a month of September, when on your homeworld innumerable human beings will revolt in false humanism, however correctly, against several death sentences passed. The condemned will be innocent of the charges against them, and from this point of view, they will have to suffer death innocently. But they are guilty on many other counts, and are also guilty of murder. Consequently, one way or the other, elimination by banishment would be justified. But the death penalty will be carried out and ordered by powers who are also in need of elimination, for they are guilty of 1,000-fold murders. Elimination in a rational and truly humane form never means the infliction and execution of a death penalty, but a measure in the form of banishment for a fixed term or for life, depending on the gravity of the crime, and so on. Elimination, in the total sense of the word, does not mean destruction, annihilation, killing, eradication, etc., as is unfortunately often understood by Earth humans, because the value of the word, coming from the Latin language, means that something is put over a threshold or that something is removed. It means that something is removed from a smaller or larger complex because it brings harm or because it is insufficient, faulty, or superfluous. Consequently, it must be eliminated, sidelined, or moved to another place, etc., so that it can be treated separately and, if possible, changed or transformed into what is correct. Earth humans also see it in this manner, as can be seen from their dictionaries and language books, although in the end they still consider eliminating any human beings, which unfortunately extends in this respect to the death penalty and its application. But that is not in the actual sense of the term value. Billy, I do not understand what you are actually talking about. Obviously, it is a political intrigue by some lousy dictator. I mean, regarding those who are sentenced to death. Regarding your last comment, everything is clear to me. Ptah, you have got it, because the event will take place in that country you call Spain. Billy, so the arch crook and political murderer Generalissimo Francisco Franco. Ptah, he has killed or had killed a number of human beings himself for political, military reasons, and is as guilty as those whom he will have condemned to death. I think you know what that is about. Billy, I know this scoundrel personally from Spain. Although I could only talk to him for a few minutes through an interpreter, I really do not have a good opinion of him. To me, he is the bigger scoundrel than the Shah, as in Shah Reza Mohammed Pahlavi of Persia, who lives unjustly to his glory, and Indira Gandhi, who is selfish, and some others who savor their might. I have met some of them myself and know who and what they really are. Ptah, you should not speak like that, even though your words are true. Such statements can be interpreted very unfavorably to you by Earth humans. They are still insufficiently developed in their knowledge and judgment to be able to understand your words. Billy, I know, but still I had to say it, and I think it would only be good if Semyazi would also convey this conversation to me later. Ptah, we will comply with your request, but not without me explaining the following. The laws of nature seem very harsh and inhumane to the still ignorant earth human being, but they are absolutely perfect and logical in their nature and never need revision. At the present time, the human beings of earth cry out for humanism, but they do not understand the meaning of their cry and the word humanism. She believes that if they create or preserve the punishment of death, they are thereby doing a good work and showing themselves as humane. But this is by no means so, for by inflicting the penalty of actual total elimination, they become indifferently inhumane and commit a crime against the laws of the creation, against themselves, against the guilty, and against their whole environment, and this because they do not replace the penalty of death by banishment and do not grant the fallible the possibility of error recognition and its correction as well as of conscious evolution. The death penalty of ausgurtator human life forms on Earth is still often considered the only lawful manner to protect the healthy and good life forms and to satisfy human laws. But this is wrong and totally contrary to the law of creation. But whoever sees it differently is either religiously biased or otherwise misguided. Earth humans of the present time would very well be able to apply the natural laws of elimination in the form of an expedient and time appropriate, as well as evolution promoting and error inhibiting banishment for such ausgurtiti human life forms in the form of humane humanity, if they finally became aware of their rationality and intellect and were willing to think. But bestiality still prevails in earth humans, and his or her humanism is only an evil, false show. Outwardly and in public, she cries out for humanity, but in his or her innermost being, they are still barbarous and very immature. The earth human being deceives himself, herself, and cries out in offense for vindication when she is reproached for their merely feigned humanism, which they often display publicly through demonstrations. This humanism, however, is nothing but a sham, a lie, and a deception. The earth human being cries out indignantly when accused of this lie and deception of merely feigned humanism, for they do not want to acknowledge or see the truth. She speaks of peace and love and does not know what it is all about, just as she does not know what humanism is all about. She speaks great words and believes himself herself justified by them, but they kill without hesitation when they believe themselves to be in danger, or they kill without hesitation on an order. And once she has killed, all his or her good intentions quickly vanish, and the slumbering bestiality within him or her breaks through with tremendous violence. Earth humans have experienced this again and again up to the present day. Just think of the wars and revolutions of modern times. Where can real humanism still be found? Or does she perhaps think that terror and criminal acts of violence, bombings, religious wars, such as in Ireland and Palestine, assassinations, and many other horrible things are humane? Or does she perhaps think of humanity when she goes out into the streets and demonstrates, even if this may be done peacefully and without murder and manslaughter? Nowhere is humanity to be found, also not in a peaceful demonstration. Everything is only lies and deceit, malicious deception, and self-importance with a sense of wanting to make oneself better than the human beings of the earth really are. But this is only because she has not yet perceived himself, herself, and consequently still lies to himself, herself. If she really wanted to practice self-knowledge and act in humanity, she would take hold of the spiritual teaching in order to finally find the truth and try to act accordingly. The consequence of this would be that the people would depose their governments and replace them with spiritual leaders. Through Earth humans, then, who would know, rule, and honor the truth and the natural and creational laws whereby they would govern the earth and all human beings unselfishly and in correct form. But chaos still prevails on earth, and so also the punishment of total elimination of life. I have already said that the earth humans are already capable of correctly carrying out the punishment of the elimination of their time according to time given and evolutionary banishment, if only they would become aware of the rationality and the intellect. Nature herself would give him or her a recognizable example to create the necessary laws and carry out their application. On your earth, too, there are various places where Asgirtidi animals are forced into seclusion, into an isolation where they can no longer indulge in their asartung. Okay, if they don't behave, we put them out in the middle of nowhere where they have to behave. So, where this is possible, nature acts accordingly in order not to have to kill. Earth humans are offered the same possibilities, even more so than is possible for nature, because the human being's lack of understanding has restricted their freedom. In your oceans, you have large islands, which you can usefully employ for the banishing elimination of Asgirtider. Create certain zones from these islands and deport the Asgirtirten there for a time, or, if necessary, for the duration of their lives. In this manner, these elements will be eliminated from your ranks without you having to apply the penalty of death. However, in doing so, separate female and male life forms from each other on different islands, so that they can not see each other during the rest of their lives and also cannot reproduce. But give them all the necessary means to ensure the evolution of the spirit and consciousness. So he's basically saying, if you do the death penalty and you kill somebody, even though he's a murderer or whatever, that ends his evolution until he's reincarnated and he gets to start all over again. Whereas if you banish him and put him on an island, he's got time yet to work on his evolution, if he wants to. However, secure everything to such an extent that never a human being thus eliminated can ever return to society unauthorized. Also, do not provide them with technical aids, but provides for them only in respect of health and food and the necessary means of spiritual and consciousness evolution. Take away their tech. On the whole, however, let them work for themselves on their islands so that they have to earn their living by work of their hands. You should only give them the bare necessities, then you will do the correct thing. Billy, something similar to this was once declared by Arahat Atharsata or Semyazi. However, I believe I know that this meets with resistance on earth, for in their false humanism, human beings are not yet able to recognize the logical and the good. Ptah, nevertheless, they will have to learn it sooner than they expect. But I also know that a great deal of pain and hardship will be connected with this development. But let us leave that for now. Let us transmit to the world Kartag, for you shall know it. And parentheses, after the hyperleap. Ptah, what you see there is now Kartag. Now go with Semyazi, she will show you the world up close. And then this parentheses, on Kartag with Semyazi. Billy, I thought you told me that the inhabitants of this world here were somewhat more advanced than the Earth humans. I do not see any aeroplanes or anything. If they are throwing nukes at each other, they must have some, right? Semyazi, you are wrong. Their flying apparatuses do not meet the standards of terrestrial aeroplanes. because they are already beam ship-like. They also do not drop their death projectiles from their flying apparatuses, but shoot them up into space with rockets and then steer them back down towards the enemy. The rockets are similar to those used on Earth to shoot up satellites, only their technology and propulsion forces are fundamentally different from those on the Earth. But now see the city ahead and look here on the screen. A bomb is falling high up there and it will destroy the city ahead. It is not very dangerous for the people of the city because they are already deep underground in their safety city. Billy, aha, now I see the thing. Actually quite a small thing. Semyazi, sure, but it holds 1,000 deaths. Billy, can we get a little closer? I want to photograph the thing when it blows up. Semyazi, you can do that from here too. We are 35 kilometers from the city here, and it is also still dangerous here. As soon as the projectile is exploded, we have to leave very quickly. Billy, like you, human beings, the fireworks, now the thing explodes. This is gigantic. Parentheses, I can just snap 2 pictures. As if by a giant's fist, the beam ship is suddenly hurled away while Semyazi reaches into her apparatus with lightning speed. Good going, Semyazi. Has the ship under control. Good child. That was almost lost. That effect, that is remarkable. End quotes. End parentheses. And there's a picture of a nuke going off. Semyazi, sorry. I just wanted to bring that to your attention. Billy, it is good. I have digested it. That was huge. Semyazi, these nuclear projectiles are extremely dangerous and much more powerful than the ones you have on Earth. Billy, I noticed that, but look down there now. The damn thing is still growing. It is just madness to let go of such powers. Semyazi, sure, it is very bad, but look here on the screen now. Billy, what is this? Semyazi, this is an atomic projectile. Apparently, it is one that was shot up from the city that was just destroyed. But as you can see, it is out of control and shooting out into open space. Billy, if the city is now broken, then they can no longer steer that thing. Semyazi, certainly. That is why we have to destroy it. Otherwise, it will fall on a star somewhere or on another world and maybe cause a catastrophe. Billy, how are you going to blow that thing up or otherwise destroy it? Semyazi, Father might do that from his spacecraft. I want to show you. Parentheses. Like a lightning-fast projectile, our beam ship shoots up, and already I see the gigantic spaceship coming toward us at breakneck speed. Not far from the spaceship, Semyazi now stops, and we float just like that in space. It just seems crazy to me that we are not falling down to the world we are floating above. Semyazi, look there. Father has already located the projectile himself and will destroy it. What you see there on the right is an energy emitter or an energy gun, as I am sure you would say. High-grade energy is being emitted there, compressed into a block by another form of energy and directed at the atomic projectile. See now. Billy, I got it already. I was just able to get a photo of the launch. Man, girl, this is fantastic. The energy is actually balling up into a block. And there's a couple of pictures here. Semyazi, sure, that is what I told you. Billy, but where is the bomb now? I cannot see it. Semyazi, it has already escaped very far. Look here on the screen. It is already 400 kilometers away now. Billy, fabulous. That thing's got quite a tooth on it. Can I maybe photograph the explosion from here? Semyazi, sure, even better than the world below. You can do it directly through the windows without the device. Attention, the explosion is about to happen. You can watch it from this window. Billy, I've got it. This is a fantastic spectacle. I do not understand one thing, though. Why could you only see the explosion for a few seconds? On the world below, a huge mushroom grew up and spread, but here only the explosion took place and everything was over in seconds. Semyazi, you were watching very carefully. The planet is surrounded by different atmospheric layers, etc. In these, the mushroom cloud is able to spread and grow high, as you say. Here in free space, however, there are no such conducting layers, which is why every energy immediately fizzles out of its concentration out if its concentration is not controlled. The energy used by my father was controlled, and so it was able to sustain itself. But the released energy of the explosion was not subject to any guidance or control, and so only the power of the elements became visible. That is, the momentarily released energy was visible, but it immediately dissipated into empty space with tremendous speed. Therefore, you were only able to observe the atomic fire only during a few seconds. Billy, I did not know that, but I understand completely. Semyazi, it is about time. Billy, let us go then. Where are we going to leap to? Semyazi, we want to take you to the galaxy Beberas, Beberas, to the world Neber, Neber, in the system Kras, Kras. Billy, where is that and what is interesting there? Semyazi, it is 9,380,000,000 light years from Earth. This galaxy was in the very early times a favorite destination of many races who became proficient in space travel. There are many planets there which you on Earth call primordial worlds and which are inhabited by many animal forms. Often these animals are very gigantic and of unusually large growth. They exceed all normal standards of like animals on other primordial worlds in the universe. And this is very fact attracted very many space races to these worlds. Even today, this is so. So they got dinosaurs. Billy's going to go check out a dinosaur. Billy, so you really mean that there are worlds there that look like the Earth must have looked many millions of years ago? Semyazi, sure. Very many such worlds exist there. Billy, what kind of animals are there? When I fumble around in ancient Earth history, I come across dinosaurs and dinosaur birds. You also talked about gigantic animals. Are they perhaps these cute little animals? Semyazi, sure. That is what you call those animals. Billy, girl, I think that is great. Then I want to get a close look at one of those little animals. Maybe I can do handshakes with a special form of them. What do you think? Semyazi, you are funny. Billy, why is that? I think I have to have a close look at the playthings if you are going to give me the opportunity. I cannot let such an opportunity pass me by. Semyazi, they are gigantic animals and they can be very dangerous. Billy, still, I would like to pat one of these little animals on the tail just once. Semyazi, you would really do that? Billy, why would I not? If you give me the chance, you will see for yourself. Besides, I have got my pocket artillery with me, and especially this one hardly resists anything. I think he's got a .45 revolver in his pocket. If one of those little dinosaurs is determined to put me on its menu, I will blow its little brains out. Semyazi, your fearlessness frightens me, and I recognize in you that you mean what you say very seriously, even if you laugh. Billy, do you really think I'm playing with such things? Semyazi, no, I know you mean your words very seriously, but often you are a bit strange with your humor, and so it is not always easy to tell when you are joking and when you are serious with your words. I always have to orient myself to your thoughts when you speak like that. You would actually dare to approach these gigantic animals? Sure, you have a gun with you, and you could kill the dinosaurs with your heavy device, but it... Billy, girl, that is not a device. That is a .44 Magnum revolver. Semyazi, sure, that is what you call it in your language, But listen now, you could really kill the Saurians with that because you can do it very well with such weapons. But it is simply not possible for us to walk in the world Niebuhr, as much as I would like to concede this to you. We have to shield our ship from all view for a variety of reasons. Billy, do human beings also live there? Semyazi, sure, but they are not life forms brought forth by these worlds. On primordial worlds, there are no human life forms yet, because these usually only come into being at much later times. We are not aware of any primeval world that is inhabited by dinosaurs and human life at the same time. Billy, I did not know that. But as you say, human beings still live there on Niebuhr. Is this an exception to the rule? Semyazi, no, because those life forms were transplanted there. But come on now, let us get carried up into the dome. Father is probably expecting us. Billy, go ahead, I cannot wait. Semyazi, I would be surprised if that was not the case with you. The human beings on Niebuhr no longer correspond to actual evolved life forms of this species, for they are feral and degenerate. In the course of several millennia, they have evolved into wild Wesen, as was also once the case on Earth. On the world Niebuhr, the reason is that two different human races from two different galaxies had established research bases on the planet and lived there during many years and explored this world. As on Earth, they built pyramids and were thus protected by solid walls from the hostile and rampant environment. However, due to a cosmic catastrophe, one day the homeworld of one race was destroyed, and so the human beings living on Niebuhr could not go back. The homeworld of the second race fell to an unknown deadly epidemic, and all life forms were destroyed by it. So the scientists and whatever on Niebuhr, they basically got abandoned because both their homeworlds got wiped out. So the human beings of the second race stationed on Niebuhr also found no way back and decided to stay on the planet. In the tropical, humid climate, all their technological devices were slowly destroyed and rotted away over time. When they noticed the beginning damage, it was already too late to fight the decay. Most important parts were already destroyed, and they found no possibility to repair or replace them. The human beings had to watch this decay bitterly and could only hope that another space race would soon appear and save them. But this was not so, and it was not until nearly 3,000 years later highly developed life forms appeared again on Niebuhr. During this long wait, the space travelers stationed there died. Their descendants, however, slowly became savage and primitive and slowly adapted consciously and physically to the savage and barbaric world. They reverted to savage primitive humans whose descendants still live on Niebuhr today. Billy, remarkable, but something does not make sense to me. You say that human beings devolved into primal human beings. This would mean that the human life form was a product of nature and not a creation of the creation. It is not what you Semyazi, it is not what you think. The human life form is a creation of the creation. So it is not descended from animals such as apes, as in so maliciously claimed among you on earth. Darwin, you're out to lunch. Let me say that again. So it is not descended from animals such as apes, as is so maliciously claimed among you on earth. Darwin, no, too bad, too sad. The evolution of the human life form is very long when the physical development of form is considered. It was created out of first primitive life, but with the destiny of becoming human, and already enlivened by creational powers in the sense of becoming human. Thus, it was already determined in the first time of the creation that the procreated form had to become human and ultimately human beings. Thus, this life form is a fundamentally distinct species from the very beginning. Therefore, it was also possible that on Earth at very early times, the wild and feral human life forms could be bred back to the actual human life form by the appearance of new space travelers and their intermingling with them. Nudge, nudge, hint, hint, they're intermingling. So, human life forms that go feral no longer evolve, but a degeneration takes place, which could be called a devolution, as you said. But this never goes so far as to cause the life form to lose what it is actually human. For at a certain point, the degeneration ceases because the subconscious instinct of self-preservation inhibits further retrogression. This point is reached where all conscious knowledge and ability is paralyzed and only material self-preservation prevails. Billy, that makes sense to me. According to this, a human life form can never fall so far back that it would no longer be capable of acting, i.e., that it would become incapable of acting. This would then already correspond to the stage in which the life form would no longer be aware of its thinking or acting, i.e., a form of irreparability. Semyazi, in a certain form, yes, but with the difference that it is really only a form of irreparability that is anchored in the ability to control, in the inability to control. It is therefore, so to speak, a natural irreparability, which the human life form, however, only had to live through at the time of development during which it developed into conscious thinking in the form of the instinct of self-preservation. This corresponds to level 1-1 of the developmental table, which I already gave you at our 6th contact on the 23rd of February. She talks about the 7 levels of development and the 7 levels of subdevelopment between them. She's saying this is level 1-1. This is right at the bottom of the table. And she talked about it in contact 6. Okay, in the state of this natural and evolutionary irreparability, the body and the limbs and organs, etc., of the life form carry out all movements, etc., only in the form of reflexes, which are caused by the environmental influences, etc. These reflexes cannot be executed in a controlled manner because the thinking is not yet switched on. That is to say, reflexes are the effect of a cause which is involuntary and which therefore lie outside the possibility of a thinking process. If thinking first sets in, then the reflexes are cancelled and replaced by an arbitrary determination. The movements, etc., are then carried out in a controlled manner. Besides this natural and evolutionary irreparability, however, there is another form of a similar kind. This form, however, renders a life form immobile. This form can be caused by various dangerous factors, whereby lack of oxygen is the most frequent cause, if we assume earthly living conditions. Since Earth humans, like ourselves, require oxygen and the various gases that permeate it, it leads to irreparability with complete inhibition of movement if such life forms are deprived of oxygen for some time. The absence of oxygen and the gases it contains cause a paralysis of certain sectors of the brain which contain the instinct of self-preservation. The brain is thus paralyzed in certain sectors and rendered non-functional. Thinking stops, and the body, the limbs, and organs, etc., react only involuntarily and thus reflexively. The life form still lives in this state, but it is capable neither of thought nor of movement. Life only takes place organically functionally, like a mechanism. If food is given to the body, it is digested, but the brain is no longer able to utilize or realize it. Billy, girl, that is cruel. That is saying that such a human being is a living dead one. Semyazi, sure. That is very accurately expressed even by you, because such damaged life forms are in a sense actually living dead. Billy, now I understand a great deal more. This is outrageous, and I really wonder whether euthanasia would not be appropriate in such cases. I have often thought a lot about this, but I have never really been clear about whether assisted suicide should be used in such cases. I simply think that in such cases a life form really has a right to euthanasia, because if the consciousness is no longer functional and simply languishes in darkness, then life has become useless and meaningless. The consciousness is no longer able to fulfill its task and is sunk into darkness and uselessness. I think that in such cases, euthanasia is actually absolutely justified. What I do not find correct, however, is that euthanasia is also carried out, or should be carried out, where the consciousness of the life form is still intact. Euthanasia is often demanded only because the life form is old or has to endure great pain to a certain extent, or simply because certain human beings seem useless and superfluous and are afraid of illness, of any negative effects, and of the uncertain end. In such cases, I think that euthanasia is unjustified and should never be carried out. I find it appropriate and justified only where the consciousness and subconsciousness are no longer functioning, and where there has also been a sinking of consciousness into darkness. This would be the case, as you say, in the case of an absolute and irreparable irreparability. For my part, however, I have not yet become clear whether this is really the case. But if this is an assumption, then euthanasia is unjustified. Where do you and yours stand on this? Semyazi, you speak from the mind of all of us. Your thoughts are also ours. Only recently, Father spoke of the factor humanism, and also in this case his words are confirmed. Earth humans are very unhumane and irrational. We are informed that euthanasia is forbidden by law in your country, and that you are involved in various legal proceedings. Euthanasia, however, is a natural law of true humanity, and by nature it is applied daily, and always where this law must be fulfilled. But this law also applies to Earth humans, and therefore they do not commit a crime when they apply euthanasia according to the law of nature. We're talking suicide here, or assisted suicide. But it is only justified where the facts you have mentioned apply and an irreparable irreparability appears. Euthanasia, however, must never be permitted and is contrary to the laws of the creation and nature where it is carried out only for reasons of tiredness of life, pain, sorrow, and worry, feeling abandoned, old age, and as a result of many other things of the same direction. So basically, if you're old and you can't hardly walk anymore and you got diseases and everything else, you still got to hang in there, because you might evolve a little more. You might learn something. You can't turn the switch off. Billy, that is a clear answer, which also tells me that irreparability therefore really means being dead alive. By then, how is it with you and other highly evolved life forms in the universe? Do you or others also bring euthanasia into use? Semyazi, certainly. It is applied everywhere, and in those cases where there is no possibility of any change for the better. But these possibilities are much greater in relation to the earthly ones. Billy, are you saying that you can cure irreparability? Semyazi, in certain cases, yes. Billy, that is fantastic. What do you think? Will those on Earth also be able to do that one day? Semyazi, certainly. But there will be several millennia to go before then. I think she's talking about replacing the acids in the brain. They can bring people up evolutionary-wise by transplanting brain acids somehow. Billy, too bad, but have you worked out these possibilities of a cure yourselves? Semyazi, only partially, because as is usual in the universe, we have received help in this regard from higher evolved life forms. Billy, aha, so not everything is your own doing then. Semyazi, that is so. But Father can tell you more about that. He is much more versed in these things than I am. Just ask him when we will be with him in a minute. Billy, good then. He's already coming to meet us. That was a pretty great firework display, Ptah. Ptah, you are thinking of the explosion? Billy, they made quite an impression on me. But I was talking to Semyazi earlier regarding help, etc., between different life forms in the universe. Can you tell me more about that? Specifically, I would be interested in the cooperation between different life forms for once. Ptah, are you thinking of cultural cooperation between the different life forms? Billy, yes, but also in every other relationship. And what about cooperation between the life forms of this universe and other universes? Ptah, I cannot answer that question for you in short words. I would therefore recommend you wait until we have completed the last station of this journey. After that, I will give you a detailed answer. Billy, thanks. And then there's some pictures here of dinosaurs and whatever. I guess that's on the planet Niebuhr. In parentheses, Ptah initiates the next hyperleap, and seconds later, we arrive at our destination. I fly down to the world of Niebuhr with Semyazi and take many photos. There was extraordinarily little talking, and it was only about completely trivial things. I was so absorbed by the life of the primordial world with its dinosaurs, prehistoric men, and the guarding of the planet that I simply forgot all conversation. Everything was so fantastic for me that I must actually have been fascinated. Statement from the 24th of September 1975 in Hinwil. Back to the giant spacecraft of Ptah. Ptah, that was the last place we wanted to take you on this journey. In a few minutes, we will be transmitting back to the vicinity of the Sol system, after which I will answer your question. Billy, thanks, Ptah. I am quite excited. Semyazi, when is that? When is it that you are not? After transmission, still very far out from the solar system. I'm going to stop here, and looks like we got one or two more after this. So that is it for number 7, I guess. 7th part of Contact Report 31. I'll be back.